Hi, I'm Corey Dahman, and I'm going to show you how to get started on a super easy cross-stitch project. What we're going to be making is something along these lines. Little either keychains or bookmarks, and the finished project isn't very big, but you can make it bigger certainly, but based on the pattern that you're going to get or that you've got, they're not going to be super big. So what this is, it's called Counted Cross Stitch, and in your little kit you've got something like this little bag. You've got a spool of thread or DMC floss, and that DMC, it comes like this from the store. Everybody has it, even like Walmart has it. And you just wind it around these little spools so it doesn't get all tangly and snarly. And you make little X's on this Aida cloth or ADA cloth, and that gives you your image or your picture, and you're going to get, in our case, some letters, and it'll come out something like this. And then this is the pattern that tells you where to make your little X's on the cloth so that you get the letters. And you have a choice, like you can see here with these two. I did an uppercase and a lowercase. I did all uppercase. My name is Corey, and that's how I spell it, but I also have a friend named Corey, and this is for her. So you can do uppercase and lowercase, all uppercase, or you can just do your initials, or you can just do one initial. I mean, you totally get to pick. When it comes like this, and that's because the thread unravels. See, the background cloth unravels, and when I sew around it with the sewing machine, it keeps it from unraveling quite as much. So you can expect some of that. If yours comes unraveling, that's okay. It does that because this is what they call a 14 count, which means there's 14 squares per inch. The bigger the number, so 18, 22, that means the tighter the holes, the tighter the squares. You make this by making little X's in each square, and the bigger number means more squares per inch, so that means they get smaller. It works in reverse. So like an 11, the holes would be bigger. 22 or 32, the holes would be smaller. This happens to be a 14, and when you work with 14, 2 strands of this thread is pretty good. These threads come like this, and each one of these has 6 pieces, 6 little sections. So before you start, you cut off, I usually cut off about 20 inches. If you use the whole piece, you won't have to thread your needle as much, but you're going to get knots, guaranteed. If you use too little, you're going to be threading your needle all the time. So I usually go about 20 inches, and I don't get as many knots. And then so you cut it off at about 20 inches, and then you just take 2 of these little strands and peel them apart. And you just peel it slowly all the way down. And then it's going to be a little bumpy. And so what I do is I get, I bought this at a yard sale just for this, but I get one of these, and then, or you can use an iron or anything really, and you don't even have to do it. It just makes it so you're less likely to get knots. It takes those little bumplies out. So I cut off about roughly 20 inches, more or less is fine. And then I separate this piece into strands, and I want 2 strands. That's what I'm going to be sewing with. And then that magically comes like this. So your section has a needle in it that's designed for cross stitch. And so you just want to put 2 strands through, and this is about a 20-inch piece. And then you take up your project, and this is roughly 50 to 55 inches, not inches, squares top to bottom, and roughly 100 to 110 squares side to side. And the pattern calls for each uppercase letter is about 14 inches tall from bottom to top, and it's about, well, depending on which one you choose, anywhere from 8 to 12 side to side. So you don't have to make this exactly perfect, but you kind of figure, like, if I'm going to do 4 letters, I'm going to start like maybe right here. So when I go 14 inches up, it'll go from about here to here. And then if I'm going to do 4 letters, it'll go from about here to here. So you don't want to start too far to the left, to the bottom, to the top, or to the side, because you might run out of space. So, you know, something like about this. Now, this is a great example. I'm going to pull this way up here. You can go in between the squares because, well, let's see if I can make it work. See how I did in between the squares there? You don't want to do that. You want to start in a full square, and you want to go from square to square. See how when I came up through this one, it's just in a full square? So I come up through the back, and you decide whichever one's going to be your back. I come up through the back, and I pull it, and then I hold it, the back side. I hold it with my finger, okay? And then I'm going to pull it up here close, so hopefully you can see it. I want to make an X. I always go from left to right when I'm moving across this way, and then I come back and my back stitch is right to left. And that way all my little X's, my squares, go in the same direction. Some people do it differently. They do it opposite, but whichever way you want it, you want all of your bottom stitch facing one way and all of your top stitch facing the other way. And the standard way to do that is you go from left to right, kind of like the way we write letters. So I pulled my thread through a square and I'm holding it in the back, and then I'm going to go make the first part of my X, and I'm going to go up into the one row up, one square to the right. So one up, one to the right. Okay, and then I'm going to come in through the back and pull it through. And you can see how the string is still here, and I've got kind of like an angle. Remember, this is backwards because when I flip it over this way, it'll have started on the bottom left, gone one square up to the right. And now, so that I can not have to tie a knot in here, I'm going to come back down through this square. So right next to where I started. See, I'm above it now. I'm going to go right next to where I started. And I'm going to put those threads through, and I'm going to hold them flat so that as I'm sewing these X's, it holds those threads down. I don't have to make a knot. So remember, this is the back. I'm going to flip it over now and look at the front. And I've got 1/2 of an X. I started from the bottom left and went up to the upper right. And now I'm going to do, I've got my thread here, and I can come back and finish my X. Let me see it. I got to come up really close so that I can see it because my eyeballs are old. I usually use a magnifying glass when I do this, so I can't see so good. Okay, so if you can see there, I've got an X. Okay, hopefully that focuses. I started from the bottom left and went to the top right. I came underneath on the back, and I came from the bottom right to the top left. And as I go up to make these, I just follow that same exact pattern. So if I'm making the letter A or the letter B or whatever, I'm making 2 X's right next to each other, and I do it just like this. So I've made my first X, and now I'm going to go down and make my second X. Again, I want my X's to be in the same direction, so I'm going to go right next to it. Sorry, I can't see this very well. I'm kind of poking around and guessing. I'm going to go in the bottom left, maybe. Okay, see, so bottom left, and I'm going to pull it through, and I'm going to go up to the very next hole and go to the top right. So my underneath stitch is going in the same direction that the bottom stitch in this one did. It's underneath. And now I'm going to do the same thing I did the first time. I'm going to go on the bottom right. Maybe I am. Sorry, like I said, my eyeballs are old. I can't see this. Okay, good. So bottom right, and I'm going to come up, pull my string through, and then go into the top left. I'm just using the 4 holes that are right next to each other to make 1 X. Okay, that's it. See? And I count. So if my letters are 14 inches tall, so I've got 1 row, and then I've got 2 rows, 3 rows, 4 rows, 5 rows, all the way up until it's 14 rows. And I look at this to tell me where exactly I make my stitches. So if this was going to be a letter D, I would keep going my 2-piece pattern all the way up to the top. So I would have 14 stitches to the top. Okay, so let's just pretend I've done that. I've got 14 stitches. We're going to just pretend for the sake of pretending. So I've got 2 here, and then I'm going to go 2 more, 2 more, 2 more, 2 more, all the way up to 14. and that's going to be my base. And then I do the same thing that I kind of did in the beginning. I take my needle on the back side. Remember, my X's are on the front. The back's going to look different. You're not going to have X's on the back. So I take my needle and I bring my needle right through those stitches on the back side, just like that. And that is going to allow me to cut off. That is going to allow me to not make a knot, but my stitches are anchored down. Okay? Again, real quick, bottom left, top right for your first stitch. All your stitches going this way, bottom left, top right, bottom left, top right. When you make the X, you go bottom right, top left, and you do that all the way up, and you just follow the pattern, okay? If you get confused, you can ask me, and I'll be glad to help you figure it out. And then when you're done, I just, like I said, I just sewed a scrap of fabric on the back so that it was nice and smooth, and it's really flat, and I can stick it in a book. And I just put some ribbon on the top, and I'll show you again. I do the same thing. So how the ribbon is kind of crimply, I just take my, you can use a regular iron or a flat iron, and I don't hold it in there too long so it's not going to melt it. You have to be careful how hot you make your iron. Certain fabrics will, certain materials will melt, so be real careful with that. Check with your parents if you're not sure. But, and then I can just bring it in here. And then I can staple this, or I can tie this, or I can use some of this little string and tie a bow. And I've got a bookmark. So there you go. Hope you enjoy it. Have fun.